anyway.
Yeah, well, I actually think the best intro for you would be the question that we're all thinking. Yeah, here's a good one. When you buy in at Club Marconi, do they automatically just pay you out? Or do you actually have to play poker before getting a paycheck?
Yeah, this is a big problem for me. I'd
It's
like
a problem,
to just
is it?
skip that and take the 8 hours because it's a foregone conclusion that I'm going to win the tournament, right?
Well, I mean, according to your Hendon Mob, yes. That's what it would seem.
Yeah.
You have just ticked over the 500k mark on Hendon Mob. Are you aware of that?
I am, because my friend Henry sent it to me, Henry Tran. Mm-hmm. So he's super aware of that. I wouldn't have realised otherwise. I knew I was in the ballpark of that, but like specifics, had no idea, yeah.
Does that change anything for you? Was that like a goal or anything, or was it?
No. It wasn't a goal. It wasn't really something that crossed my mind. It's, as you know, it's probably a lot better to be really profitable and have a lot of cashes. So usually more concerned about where the graph's going as opposed to how much I'm cashing for. So yeah, it's not really on my radar. Maybe if I go over 5 million, then I'll be excited.
Yeah. I mean, I could imagine you would be somewhat excited at that.
Yeah.
But let's focus on the process here, right? So let's get fired into the reason why I wanted you here, and how you can have an input on, I guess, what I'm trying to promote within poker, which is the mindset stuff, which is the ability to perform at our best level, and just the mental health side of things of balancing life and poker. Getting great results, but also not letting it affect your life in a negative way, because obviously balance is key. Why don't you give us a bit of your story? So I know a bit, but I'm going to give you the stage. You can share a bit about your story and how you got into poker and what it means to you.
Yep, I'll give you the background. I think a few people are familiar with it, I guess, but I'll give you the full background. So I played mainly when I was 18 and 19 at the pub in APL games, without any real success, but I enjoyed it. And then in my 20s, I fell out of it and was doing what 20-year-olds do, so going out a lot and working and whatever else. And then I took an interest in it. I'd still watch it if it was on ESPN, knew how to play, and would recognize faces and enjoyed that. So I'd always watch the main event when it's on. And then when I was working at the gym I was at in Redfern, my job is doing soft tissue work and sports massage, and a Canadian pro by the name of Tim Ulmer came in, and he told me that he was a poker pro and there was a WSOP event in Sydney, and I couldn't really believe it. I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, there's a WSOP event in Sydney. I thought it was only Vegas. And he's like, oh, no, they do circuits everywhere, which I wasn't aware of, and he's going to go play that. And I just thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. Whereas like usually when he says that to people, he said, people don't care. But he's like, you are one of the people out of 100 that takes an interest, because you'd probably be aware when you tell people at a party you play poker, they're like, oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I mean...
How much have you won?
Yeah. How much have you won? How did you get into it? You know, what got you into that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I had some background knowledge. So I ended up jumping in the opening event and might not have made break, and was like, oh, I just did $500. It's kind of annoying. Like,
how many massages is that? Gone.
Exactly. You know,
yeah.
it's a decent day's work. Anyway, but got more and more into it over that patch, and TJ and I formed a friendship and kind of did an exchange that he would talk me through hands and give me resources to get better, and I would help him with his back and his powerlifting training, which was something that I was very into at that time.
It's a good trade-off, yeah.
It was a really good reciprocal relationship. He got really strong, and I won a lot at poker in that patch. So it was, it was definitely mutually beneficial. But yeah, we're great friends on the back of that. So
yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because that's sort of how I remember you kind of coming onto the scene. I knew TJ as well, and really, really, really great guy. Living in Redfern. I think he's back in Canada now, so we'll give him a shout out. But so I remember because that year I had some good results too, and you and I think from memory, were fighting for the player of the series, and then did you end up winning it, or did someone else?
Someone was TJ. He ended up winning. He won like 2 of the last events. He had to win the bounty to tie with me, and then because he won more money in the series, he won the...
It was like a tournament of champions thing in like Arizona or something random, wasn't it?
Somewhere worse. I think it was like South Carolina or North Carolina.
Yeah.
Which by all accounts is not.
So what did we do that with Jarrod? We sent him home, didn't we? After that, we were like, "Nah, sorry, TJ, you're out. Get out of here."
Yeah. What do you think you're doing? Like win a tournament to tie.
Some sort of Canadian representing Australia in America. Come on. Mate, yeah. So we sent him home. So that was the end of that story.
It's a disgrace.
So he got you into it. He helped you with your fundamentals. You had a few good results. I think that series you won a tournament. So you got yourself a WSOP circuit ring. Is that right?
Yeah, I did.
And then another final table or another win in that same series?
Yeah. So I final tabled the 6 max, which TJ won, which was a week later, and then had a deep run in the opening. Had a deep run in the main. So
Right. And so this is sort of at a time when you're just getting into poker seriously, even though you dabbled in it before, right? Like,
yeah, kind of. The bit to premise before that, I did have some success in a trip to Melbourne. So TJ went down and he's like, "Oh, you should come for the main event weekend." And I was like, "Oh, got a tax bill to pay. I just want to be sure of the amount because self-employed and not always exactly on top of the numbers." So
I just have to hold you out there. You can't say the T word on my podcast.
Tax. Sorry.
Get out.
Sorry.
We'll blip that out. Yeah.
Government forced funds.
Well, just no G words either, please. No T words or G words. All right. Just P words. Poker only.
All right. Well, we're going to get into politics at some point. That's a favorite topic.
That's another word.
No, I'm joking.
All right. Yeah. So you went down to Melbourne. Was it Aussie Millions or?
It was like the Melbourne Championship or something. But they used to run a series every quarter. And so they'd have like a 1,600 main, 1K 6 max opening event across the whole week, and then a 5K, which was usually pretty small. And so I went down just for the main and ended up chopping with TJ. So that was the most, like that kind of setup, being able to flick in everything in that WSOP series, I guess. And
so that was before the WSOP, was it?
Yeah, that was like in the August, and then WSOP was in December.
Wow. So so that wasn't really then your first sort of big series. Like you had a few things before that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was on a heater that I haven't had since, and probably will never have again at that point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, recently you've been having some success as well, and you seem to be quite consistent across the Australian tournaments that you've been playing. What sort of things would you attribute to, that has contributed to your success?
Well, at the start, it was definitely like beginner's luck, and I was having way too much positive variance. So everything I was doing was working, and every time I'd get in a flip for my tournament life, I'd win it. So like, it's usually gonna breed some success. In 2018, after all that success, I would have had quite a big losing year. I'm not sure of the exact amount, but like went to Vegas, lost a bit, and then it was whatever and everything else in Sydney. So kind of had to reassess, and there was a point of like reassessment where, like, to play well, you do have to look after yourself. You can't just keep getting up late, go into reg and play fast and hope to get a stack. If personally, I find like if you're relaxed and you let things happen, then good things will happen. Or if you're 3-betting half the deck like it never works out.
Yeah. So there's a level of like having to really relax in the process. So it's as if you went up real quick and then you had a downswing and you're like, oh, hang on, there's a reflection period now. Like, what does this mean? Like, how am I going to have to adjust to this, right? Because variance inevitably hits all of us.
Yeah.
And it's a big lesson and a tough one often to learn.
Yeah, we think we're just going to keep winning forever, especially at that point. I would say I was pretty naive and went on a heater that I don't think I've seen too many people go on, especially when they've started. I think it was just really fortunate. And then knowing that doesn't last forever, not playing well, I had to do a lot of reassessment because you think you'll just keep going on this upward trajectory. Why wouldn't you? Because that's what's been happening. So, but it's like a process thing. So I'd say lately I've found that I always have to go have a really hard sweat before playing just to be in that type of state, to be relaxed and be willing to sit there all day and not force things. And then adding like a meditation practice, which I practice something called Vedic meditation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I am, but would you like to explain that to our avid listeners?
Yep. So Vedic meditation is based off a mantra. So you have a coach for what was mine and my partner's, Joe. We both did it. You go for 4 days. They teach you how to meditate. They give you a mantra based on what they perceive as where you are in life. I don't know how they generate it. Like, it's not really my concern. They give you that, and then they teach you how to use that. And so basically the gist of it is I'll sit down for 20 minutes. I'll say my mantra. If it drifts away, let it go away. We're not forcing it to come back like Vipassana, which is a very forceful meditation. This is, if it goes away and your thoughts want to wander, you let them. Then when you feel comfortable, you bring it back to your mantra. Do that for 20 minutes, roll out of that, and then do it again later in the day.
So that's sort of part of your pre-game thing. There's a level of, and of course it's a practice, right? And some days maybe you don't do it. Some days you do. Mostly you try to, especially if they're big events. But there's a level of you that's physically needs to, relax with, getting a sweat on, as you say, whether it be with a workout or maybe a sauna or whatever. But then there's a psychological sense of, let's call it perspiration as well. So you need to kind of relax your mind to let it ease out all the bad, toxic thoughts or just calm things down, right? Is that what you're talking about?
It is. Although it's something that I do regardless, so I'll do it every day. But I do like doing it around playing. It's just, it just gets the clutter out and hopefully end up more present, less anxious, less, trying to play fast and stuff like that. Less likely to get annoyed, which we all do in this game. So anything that can curb that, I think, it's key. It can be a very frustrating game.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that's out of our control, right? So anything you can do to manage yourself through those, variables is going to help, right, in the long term. So we don't do anything irrational. We don't have brain explosions and whatnot. I like what you said about not kind of forcing the game, not rushing through things, and just getting involved in the process and being patient with things. And I'm curious, with this meditation practice that you have, what's the next level as to why that's so important for you, even outside of poker?
That's a good question. I'm not too sure. I just feel better when I do it. It's like training, which has been a pretty big part of my life in differing degrees throughout my 20s and now in my 30s. And so I fell out of it, and you kind of don't realize the value it brings when you're not doing it. But when you reintroduce it and you feel good again and you feel like everything's working as it should, and you're obviously just in a lot better shape, you feel better, you realize that's something that you need to keep in there regardless. And so, yeah, it's just important for that. And it's just to feel good and, yeah, be capable of sitting there all day without getting annoyed and be willing to be patient. Like, it's kind of a war of attrition in tournament poker, especially long day ones. It's not particularly fun. It's not like sitting there with piles with 3 tables left. It's a grind. Yeah. Sometimes you have a lot of chips on day one. It doesn't really matter. So I just think whatever just keeps you relaxed and not making blunders is good.
Yeah. I like that. So like, it sort of seems like, you know, you're really in tune with how it makes you feel. And I think that our feelings, whether they be physical or emotional, are often signs. You know, they're signs that we're doing things right or we're not doing things right. I mean, we all know how we feel after having a fast food meal. Yeah, we don't feel good, so it's probably the pain we pay, you know, for feeling good in the moment, right, by having something, you know, that's fast food. So I suppose for you, you know, when you do the meditation, it requires a bit of discipline, you know, because it's not exactly fun to just sit there and meditate, but the payoff is so worth it, and you get to feel good and feel more calm for the rest of the day. Yeah, exactly. It's doing yourself a favor for later, I suppose. It's not easy, and it's much easier just to sit there, flick on your phone, and then go do what you have to do that morning. It's harder to get up and go meditate and not flick on social media and then have a good breakfast and go train. Like, temptation is to do nothing, but yeah, just don't end up feeling very good doing that. So yeah. Well, I suppose the doing nothing is like a default for having other external things dictate how you feel for the day. Like you mentioned, you know, turning on social media or, you know, watching something on TV or letting someone else's behavior, you know, trigger you or dictate you. But if you're taking that first step by doing those, you know, self-care practices, then those external things are less likely to influence you, right? Yeah, it's a funny one, because with my studies with counseling and psychology and whatnot, what I've found is the biggest discovery we've ever made as humans is that delayed gratification is one of the most successful long-term strategies for living. That's why we work. So work is delayed gratification. I'll do something now for a better tomorrow. So you get paid or whatever, and you're contributing to society so that I can have things like money to support my family and friends, and so I'm contributing to society. Exercise is another one. Yeah. If I go and force myself to do a bit of a stressful thing that's controlled in a gym or in a, you know, whatever, then I get the benefits of feeling good later, delayed gratification. So in poker, how does that come into play? What do you think? I think it might come back to what I was saying. Like, if you are impatient and annoyed and playing fast, it's kind of the term I use, which is just forcing things. You're going to make mistakes, or you're going to be in pots that probably shouldn't be in, and then you have to push shit up a hill to get out of it. Like, you just have to sometimes go with it, and then looking back, you're going to be quite annoyed. Whereas if you kind of stuck to a sound strategy, which was, I'm going to play these cards or these ranges or whatever, even if it doesn't work out, you can be comfortable that you made the right decisions. Whereas if you're forcing things, you're going to be really annoyed when you leave, because you're likely not playing as well as you could. Yeah, look, I mean, it's one of the most challenging things from a psychological aspect with this game, and that's why I'm so, you know, adamant about this mindset component to the game, right? Like, no matter how much study you do with trying to be good with your fundamentals, which is important, of course, if you aren't preparing yourself for the performance side of things and being able to manage yourself through these mistakes or, you know, high variable situations, all the fundamentals for a lot of people get thrown out the window when their emotional brain overtakes. Yeah. So it's such a key aspect, in my opinion. And I think that you've managed that quite well with, you know, your results over 5 years. I mean, that's a small but large, well, it's a large but small sample size, really, of tournaments, if you think about it. It's a small sample size for tournaments, obviously. For sure. People don't think that, though. Yeah. People think time should be, I should have these results in this amount of time, but it's not the case. It's volume of actual tournaments.
Yeah, that you can weed difference. Out the variance. So, yeah, the example being like there's no way I was playing as good relative to that sample that we were speaking about earlier where I was just winning everything. There's no way that I was playing that much better than everyone else who kept getting put in the bin. I was probably playing much, much worse. I'd look at that now and, yeah, it was just all I knew then, but I'd say fundamentally a lot worse. It was just fortunate. It was just that small sample. Everything went my way.
So it seems like then when you really learnt your lessons were when things weren't going your way.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I think that's where you have to take a step back and think about what you're doing. Like, it ends up being quite a lot of money that you're dumping into every series. And if you think you're not playing as well as you should, probably time to reassess, because you go broke very quickly if you don't. If you can't look at it honestly and objectively. Yeah, and I think a lot of that time I just had it backwards. So to go play instead of exercising and meditating, I would take stimulants. So I'd have caffeine or I'd chew nicotine gum, which I'm quite sensitive to stimulants. It wasn't a good thing, especially it's good very acutely. So just say you're going to be very alert, but why would you need that on session 1 or day 1, like level 2? Because you're just going to have to keep chasing that high, and you need to have more coffee and you need to have more nicotine just to get close to that point, but you get all the repercussions. So that would make me irritable and play fast like I was talking about. So it was just about peeling all that back. And personally, some people will play good on stimulants, not me. I'm better if I'm just calm. And so it was figuring that out was quite important. And yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time and a bit of pain, right?
Yeah. Why would I change anything if I just kept winning?
Why would you?
I mean, I was a genius. I just won forever. So why would you change anything?
And this is what I was saying before, like with the idea of paying attention to how we feel. Because if we're feeling good because our results are good, then why would we change anything, right? And that's why I think in poker and in life probably we learn our greatest lessons when we aren't feeling good, because we kind of know, even though sometimes we're in denial, we kind of know that maybe there's some things that haven't gone your way that are external. Like in poker, I'm losing flips or I'm getting cooled, but it's like, that's going to happen to you. You have to be looking at the stuff that's in your control.
Yeah, it's a problem to dwell on those things, which we all want to do.
Yeah.
Like if that's the instant gratification, it's good to go to your friend and go, look at this hand and look how stupid this guy played it.
Yeah.
And we all do it, but I try my best not to engage, or like, got in a flip and this was the run out. I was like, who cares? At the end of the day, it's going to keep happening. So the quicker you can move on from the trivial stuff, even if somebody makes a blunder against you and it pays off, like the quicker you can not be annoyed and not be tilted and jump back in line and not care, like it's going to serve you a lot better.
Yeah.
I think we all want to indulge. It's human nature. You just want to tell everyone how bad you're running and how the world has it in for you. But what does it do? And that takes time, because it feels good in that moment.
Well, so why do you think we want to indulge? What do you reckon? What does that mean?
It just gets it off your chest. It's like, I won, I lost, but I did the right thing.
So it's like validation.
It's injustice.
It's validation. It's injustice. It's you're seeking for, I think, understanding and like acceptance. Like you need someone else to go, oh yeah, you are unlucky.
Yeah.
Like what's that? That's empathy, right? Or is it sympathy?
It's in poker world, it's got to be empathy, because we've all had it.
Right. So we're seeking an understanding from someone who's experienced the same thing. Yeah. Like a bad beat, for example.
And there's like solace in that. So you get some companionship and it just gets off your chest. You want to do it, but
I think it's feminine. I think it's like we're looking for a big hug from like a motherly. Honestly, I actually think it is. Because what else are you looking for? That's what empathy is. It's a big hug from mum.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to face, like you said earlier, like the mistakes you made earlier in the tournament to get to 20 BBs. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this stupid flip where a guy should never call off with ace jack and your king's lost or something like that. Let's talk about that. That's not fair that I lost.
So this is why I say it's feminine, right? Because what I have come to understand with, let's say, religious or spiritual stuff, as well as just life things, the feminine mother love, care, and empathy sort of thing is one side, like, which is why I say empathy is like, a big hug from mum. The fatherly stuff is more the judgmental stuff, the revelations, the judgment. So like, if I say, maybe I did this wrong or maybe did that wrong, and you tell your friend that, you've opened yourself up to judgment.
Yeah, so that's masculine in what you're saying. Yeah,
that's what I believe, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of us are afraid of that because with that comes responsibility.
Yeah.
Because if I disclose to you, hey man, I played this hand with this hand, I did this and that. What do you think? And you say, bro, what the hell are you doing? You've made 3 mistakes in one hand. Yeah. And then now there's a risk of me feeling like judged and bad and like I suck.
And everyone thinks I'm hopeless.
Exactly.
It's hard.
But there's growth in that.
There's growth in that. I make sure everyone makes blunders. No one who will be in there today doesn't make mistakes. But some of us don't want to deal. So I force myself to send a hand, even though I know the answer. Because you just whatever, brain fart, something like that. But you send it and you're like, guy's going to go, yeah, that's retarded. Like, what are you doing? But I think you do have to face that. You have to acknowledge when you just punt off. It's whatever. Everyone does it. A lot of growth comes from not making huge blunders often. Mm-hmm. So if your mistakes are little all the time, it's probably a really good thing, especially in live poker. But like the blunders you have to face, you just got to go like, probably shouldn't have shoved there.
Yeah. And look, I actually really believe that's the part that a lot of people miss, right? They miss this really key learning aspect every time they have these blunders, as you call them, because they do happen. The idea is you can minimize them over time and get better at them and make them small blunders and not big ones. But the other idea is, well, when it happens, let's embrace it when we're ready, right? Because I don't think as soon as you get out of the tournament, you need to go and face it straight away. You need to kind of calm down and relax a little bit, go and meditate, go and have a coffee and relax.
Do anything else, yeah.
Do something fun, go outside or whatever, right? When you're in different, more rational, it's like when you have an argument with your loved one. You don't try and rationalize straight away because you're both heated, right? You need to calm down. A half an hour later, you're both a bit more relaxed. You've had time to think about it. Then you can process it and think about how we can avoid these things. It's the same in poker, right?
Fully.
One thing I like about your approach to some of this is that you use humor. Tell me more about that. You seem to use humor a lot.
Yeah, I suppose I have very dry sense of humor. I don't know. I just feel like this game is going to keep pushing you down. So might as well just laugh at it and laugh at yourself and try not to take it too seriously. Because if you're riding everything and you're like riding every all in and you're taking it really serious, it ends up being really not fun quickly. So another part that I changed over that time that probably has some relevance to this podcast, when I was taking a lot of stimulants to play and I wasn't working out, I wasn't meditating, I'd also sit there with my headphones in and think that I'm in the zone and I'm going to own everyone. What I end up doing is playing a lot more hands. I don't know why, which is not good for me. And I am a lot less attuned to the table. So when I have my headphones off, especially if I'm playing with people I know and I'm chatting, one, it's a lot more enjoyable, but two, I play much better. I just seem to have a better vibe for what the person's doing. because I've been chatting to them. You can figure out who at the table's annoyed when everyone's conversing and someone's not saying something. Or just all of that. You seem to be part of the game a lot more and more in tune with everyone's decision making. So that's me personally. And you can probably see when we play together, I do talk a lot. But that's just what works for me.
I think most people put their headphones in because you talk a lot.
I know. I see that too. But what do you do?
This is really interesting though, right? Because you've made a really key point here, because a lot of people do think, I'll get my headphones on, I'll listen to my jam and I'll get in the zone and I'll just, crush everyone. But, coming back to the meditation stuff and sort of like kind of living in the present as per se, like when you're playing poker, you're in this game, you're in this environment where you are psychologically, mathematically, creatively trying to compete with each other.
Yeah.
And if you're in a different zone, you're trying to do two things at once. Some people
feels like that.
Yeah, it can, and I can. You're actually giving me a bit of an epiphany, because over the years I've gone in and out. Sometimes I do pop on headphones. Sometimes I don't. Often, if I do, it's because maybe I have a sense of frustration or something, and I want to just. It's funny when I listen to music, I actually listen to like hardcore emo, like rock music, because for me, when I grew up, that's what I did as a kid, as a teenager. I played music in bands, and so to me, it's nostalgic. It makes me feel good. It makes me relaxed because, when you're in a poker game, sometimes it's so intense and the whole world is nothing, and that is your world. But for me, I listen to that music and it kind of like externalizes.
Pulls you out of it.
Yeah, and it calms me down. And then after 10 or 15 minutes, I can pop them out and get back into the game.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that's like... I do wear them, so I might wear them 5% of the time. And it's what you said. If you're a little bit annoyed, I would definitely skew to wearing them more when I'm not in the mood to talk, which happens. And yeah, it can just pull you away from the table a little bit. Sometimes it helps to do that as well. Most of the time I like being really in it and forget about everything else going on, forget about the stakes. We'll play this hand and we'll have some fun. And if we're not in the hand, I'll annoy you till you tell me what you had last hand or whatever. Like, we're just talking. And
bit of banter, yeah.
Yeah, but it makes the day go quicker. And I feel like I play better. So it's two birds with one stone. Some people don't want to converse when they're playing. Like, that might pull them out of playing their best. But that doesn't work for me,
Yeah. So then I guess the key aspect for people listening is to find what does work for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily, I mean, you can't, it's so imperfect that there's no right way of doing it with this stuff, right? Because
exactly.
Some people are introverts. They don't want to talk.
That's it. So I was about to say, like, I'm obviously an extrovert, and for my job, I deal with people all day. And then in my free time, I'll just be catching up with people and playing poker and talking. Like, I enjoy all that. So it works for me. But if you're an introvert, don't start taking out your headphones and start chatting to everyone, because it just won't work for you. Like,
yeah. Everyone has such unique styles, don't they?
Yeah. You got to find what works for you. But like, that was something that happened over time. Like, I made a lot of blunders figuring that out, thinking that I had to wear headphones and have 3 coffees and all that.
Let's talk about the stimulants aspect of this game. I think it's interesting you brought that up. You're the first one to actually bring something like that up. Over the years, a few people have talked about it in poker because it's the only high-level competitive game or sport, if you want to call it a sport, that you can be on any drug and not be disqualified. So you're talking about things very mild, like, caffeine and
I'm not talking about illicit substances, but I've
but
seen
heaps
people
of people
on
do
them.
it.
Yeah, you can tell.
If you go to Vegas and play and you go out on the break, you'll get high just like hanging out in the back area.
Hey, I don't know how they do it. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Like,
but for some, so heaps of people have used things like Ritalin, like weed, and all sorts of things. Yeah, there's so many things, and it's like, I don't know. Like, I wonder, is it an enhancing drug? Like, does it make them think much deeper and less likely to make mistakes? Like, I wonder.
Well, the background on me using nicotine was, like, a friend of mine is a biochemist and works in that realm of human performance and stuff, and he was reading a lot of literature on nicotine and what it does to the brain, and for a short period it will light up a lot more activity, so you should be higher functioning. And it felt like that, but it's very, very short-lived. And there's definitely a repercussion. And so I was doing it with live poker. We might be getting 6 hands every half an hour or something on an FT, and you've used all your nicotine and you folded 6 times, and now you're just annoyed. You're sitting there like irritable. Yeah. So it just doesn't. I don't understand that. Like, you're getting 10 hands an hour. Why do you need to be off your face on the illicit substances? But even for me, like, why do I need all this extra energy?
I've been listening to a lot of the neuroscience behind things like the dopamine receptors, and they have this understanding now with dopamine. So, because that's kind of some of this with illicit substances, or any substance really,
light up that bit of the brain.
Yeah. And so what they reckon in a nutshell is that basically it's like a meter, right? So if you have a bit of dopamine, you kind of go, you feel good, right? But they know now that it's like it's
diminishing returns.
Well, no, it's a bounce back. So if you think about life and balance, so if you have...
Was that on a Huberman podcast?
Yeah.
I heard
you listened
to
it? Yeah. It was so good. It was all to do with addictions.
That was a great podcast.
Really, really good. I'll post the link to it in the bottom of this so people can listen to it. It's about 2 hours long, but it's very good. I forget the woman's name. She's neuroscientist, and he also is in that field too.
Yeah.
But basically the concept is that, if you, I don't know, go and smoke weed or something, you're basically going to just shoot up your dopamine things. But the repercussion is that it will go exactly the same way the other way.
Yeah.
So that's why every high has a come down.
Yeah.
But, and if you get drunk the next morning, you have a hangover, right? So caffeine, you got to have some, and then there's a bounce back. And then I need more of it, like you said before, to get me back to this state. And then you need more, and then you need more.
Yeah.
Right. So the solution seems to be...
avoidance.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
I find it hard to not have at least one coffee a day.
Oh, we all do.
Yeah. So I'll have one, but I don't have it around playing generally. Slips back in sometimes. But for me overall, it's pretty important not to. And it's like what you said. I feel that repercussion. So I feel the high, and I fully feel the come down, even if that's just a cup of coffee. But
so you're in a rare pool of people, though, where if you are actually practicing meditation, even if it's once every second or once every third day, you'll be more attuned to your swings, but you're still taking some, you're still having your caffeine. So it's like you'll just be more in tune. You'll be more in tune to the fact that it's boosted you up and then sent you down. Yeah. But the people who aren't doing any of the holistic stuff and the meditation stuff, they're just going to be like going up, down, up, down, and they're all over the place, It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So I'm trying to think of what the hack is with poker, and I think I figured it out.
I'll go. Yeah. You tell me.
Yeah. Well, you tell me what you think of what I'm going to say. So my hack here is, like you mentioned earlier, day one. Not a lot is going to be like full high equity stuff. So why do I need to be, getting heaps of dopamine in? Why do I need to be stimulated, right? I think that if we go this like naturopathic, holistic, you do your meditations, eat really well, try and limit your exposure to alcohol and caffeine and other things for at least a week leading into it, if you really want to take your poker seriously. But the hack here is when you find yourself in the back end of a tournament, I actually think that if you're finding yourself really low on energy and you're finding yourself really struggling, I would never ever say this normally, but I'm okay with having half a Red Bull. I don't do it personally.
Yeah. But you could understand where it has relevance there, yeah.
I think because what you're going to do is, okay, you might have another 10 hours to go in a tournament and you're in the final 13 of a big spot, but you're so depleted of energy and you need some hits. Do that. Do little boosts. Get yourself to the end of 10 hours and you'll pay the price for the next 3 days because you'll be exhausted. Yeah. But when the equity is so high, if you need to switch those lights on, I think that that's actually okay.
Yeah, well, I think that's really good because you can draw on it then. But if you've been smashing stimulants for the 3 days up to that point and there's 13 left, what are you going to take then?
Exactly.
What are you going to do?
You
if you have a coffee, you're going to feel worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So
have
yeah,
a
so
heart
you're
attack.
right. Like day ones, like day twos, even it's like you need to go as organic as possible, as holistic as possible, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, in those high equity spots, I tend to break rules with things I wouldn't normally do.
You have to. At that point, you have to do what's going to make you play the best for that half an hour. So I could see that. Like, it's really important, and those spots don't come around too often. So yeah, need to be in whatever state you can get to that minimizes mistakes and makes good decisions. So if that means having a really strong coffee, go nuts. I think, yeah, it's good to be able to draw on it then. So good. We've figured it out. Problem solved. We've done it.
Yeah. No, well,
Trademark.
I think like if you do what you were saying before with like if your lead up and your daily sort of weekly lifestyle is incorporating the meditation or the taking care of yourself, when you do get to the back end, if your energy levels are low, you won't need as much of it to have the effect that you need at the time.
Yeah.
See, most people I see here who do order a Red Bull will guzzle the whole thing down in one go.
Yeah.
But if you're not having it frequently, like I don't even remember when I last had a Red Bull, for example. I would only need like a couple of sips of it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the sugar spikes it will give me
smash you.
would be huge,
Yeah.
like
For sure.
because your body it's not as familiar taking that sort of stuff in.
Yeah, and you'll be tapping into that amount of dopamine straight away. There was like what you were saying then, there was, if you did that on an FT, you'd have the repercussions 3 days later, but it's probably okay if you win a tournament.
Yeah, it's an okay trade-off.
I had to do that in the Gold Coast at the Gold Coast, whatever series was just on Summer Champs.
It's hard when you win all these things, hey,
It
Jarrod.
is.
You don't know
It
which
is. What are
tournament
they
was
called?
which. Yeah, which one did I win that six-figure score in recently? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you got the Star Gold Coast Champs or whatever it was called. You just
Yeah.
finished what, fifth, sixth, I think, a
I
couple of
finished
weeks ago.
fifth.
Fifth, yeah.
But so what happened was I bagged day one, which is always really good. And so me and Will Davies, who was on your podcast a few months ago, we went to the football and we had a few drinks. And then we met up with Rod and Mick, another guy from the Poker Palace. And we went and all had dinner, and Rod was buying us margaritas and stuff. I can get carried away. I like to enjoy myself. So I had like 10 or 12 margaritas and I was pretty well watered. And Mick and Rod bagged as well. And then we were all quite hungover for the day two the next day, much more than I would have liked. So I dragged myself out of bed and made myself go kill myself in the gym for like half an hour. Felt a lot better for that. I felt fine all day, all things considered. I had to have like 2 coffees. So it just goes against everything that I've just said. And then bagged up, made the final table, which at that point I knew like adrenaline was going to be quite high anyway. So I didn't need much that next day. I still trained, meditated and stuff like that. But for that week afterwards, I busted fifth. Felt quite flat that afternoon because, yeah, it's just the way it goes. But like that whole next week, and I was back at work, back doing things, so it's killing me, like very, very flat. So I had the repercussions from the hangover, doing more stimulants, having a deep run, which the day two after being hungover was 12 hours.
Yeah.
And, like things were pretty smooth, but like half the day had a really short stack, which is somewhat stressful in itself, like you're looking for spots. And yeah, just the repercussion from that, it's pretty ordinary. Don't even know if I've fully recovered. We had a good night.
Yeah, so I suppose with stuff like this, right, like I'm glad you brought that up because, I think a lot of people struggle with the idea of being the ideal poker player.
Yeah.
And there's the realistic,
Yeah.
you still want to have fun in life. And part of the benefits of being a poker player is that you do get to have a bit of free time and you do get to travel around and you do get to have a bit of fun and go out for dinners and do this. So if you be too strict, then you miss out on some life experiences of socializing and having fun, right? Like, so
Yeah.
we need a bit of that balance. But I think the fact that we can be realistic about it and know that there's always a consequence,
Oh, those consequences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're all human, and like if we learn to habit and it's stuck straight away and you do that forever, that's fantastic, but we're not all like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a constant battle. And then once you've had 3 margaritas at dinner, your inhibitions are gone. You forget about the day 2 and away you go.
Yeah.
So,
but what I think with this is like, like if someone were to say to me, oh, how do I be the best poker player I can be? I would say, well, you do all these things, right? You take care of yourself, you practice discipline, you delay gratification. Like it's all there. It's easy. It's actually easy to map it out.
Yeah.
The thing is, doing it is nowhere near as easy as it sounds, right? So I think being realistic with who you are, with your journey and who you are in your narrative is the key aspect, because then your expectations won't disappoint you.
Yeah.
So for example, you've made all these choices and you've had a bit of fun, you had a deep run, but then there's a whole week now of feeling like shit. And maybe even now it's still 2 weeks later, you're probably still catching up on sleep or whatever it might be. Well, you know that, that's what I knew this was going to happen. I signed up for this, I chose to do those things. But if you really wanted to be the most optimal poker player, the best you can be,
you can't
do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you are doing that, you need to not be blaming bad luck for not getting results straight after. If that's, deep down that you're tired.
Oh yeah.
And you know why, but you don't want to admit it to anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. If you made a really big mistake on that day too, like what's the common denominator? What's the thing that if you just lost your focus for a little bit of time, it's probably because you stayed out really late and got really drunk, It's not that you lost your flip.
And that's, again, it's being like honest, transparent and open about your journey with yourself and with those around you, because then you're not like living in denial. You're not blaming, bad luck, or you're not being a victim in your own narrative, right?
Yeah.
Because being a victim in your own narrative gets you nowhere, really. You're just going in circles. You never grow, basically.
You're not going to grow.
Which means you'll never get the results that you so openly say you want to have in poker.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You got to look at that objectively and go, well, that's a problem. Can't be doing that all the time. Yeah. Once you're honest with yourself, and it comes back to the stuff before, like be honest, send hand histories when you make a mistake. I make them. I was talking about like a blunder the other day with people, and I was like, I just knew I had to say it because it just gets off my chest. I'm not in denial. Like, it's not a thing. I knew it was a bad hand. So it's not like something I need to figure out. It's just a blunder. And that happens. Like, how to play a spot and you don't do it. So it's execution.
Yeah. But
brain lapse.
It's that openness to be able to not be afraid of judgment and just take it rationally rather than irrationally.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably easy for us to say because we might have had a bit more success even recently than others, and then so we can be confident in the fact that if we play a hand bad, when it doesn't make us bad.
Yeah.
Or somebody who has a lot of self-doubt with it, if they play a hand bad, they might think they're bad.
Yeah.
Which is not the case, but you could see how it would be harder.
Yes.
For them to share it with their friends if they're maybe not sure if they are bad.
Yeah. But I like that. And I think we could actually leave that as a perfect place to finish our episode. To say that playing a bad hand or making a mistake doesn't mean you're a bad player.
Yeah.
So be open to the growth that is welcomed by these, unfavorable decisions or outcomes, right?
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. We're all going to keep making mistakes.
Nice.
Just minimize them, I think.
Yeah. Minimize it. And if you keep going, it compounds, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So to the last question I want to ask you to finish up, which is something I'm going to ask all my guests now. What would you say to your younger self now that you've had, like in terms of poker, your younger poker self, now that you've gone, 5 or 6 years of having these sorts of results and everything like that, what sort of wisdom would you pass on to your younger self?
That's a good question. I suppose it's all the stuff that we just discussed. So it's just looking after yourself, going through the process that's going to allow you to play all day at least at a good level I won't say A game, because just especially in these live games that tend to be a bit easier, but they are long and the walls of attrition. It's not your A game. It's just whatever it takes to not make huge blunders and to keep trying to improve. So, yeah, stop having caffeine. Don't go out drinking with Rod. Yeah. But I mean, stuff like that will keep happening. That was pretty fun.
Nice, man. Well, you got day one of the WPT main event today, day 1A.
Yeah.
How's your headspace going in? Are you all prepped mindset-wise after this?
I'm pumped. I'm going to go listen to some heavy metal.
You're going to
have
heavy
a few
metal
coffees.
Get your tobacco out, your nicotine.
Yeah, go have a few cigarettes.
Yeah, nice, man.
It's good. It will be pretty electric in there, I think.
Yeah.
They've had a really good turnout. I think this main will be enormous because it's not a huge price point relative to the opening, and the opening was massive.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Hopefully bag some chips, have a day off tomorrow.
Bag some chips, get drunk tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, man, thanks so much for being here. Best of luck in the WPT and for all the tournaments you're going to be playing. Unless you're up against me, then I wish you the worst of luck. But yeah.
That's okay. I mean, it's like, this is what Ray said the other day about us. He's like, the immovable object meets what's that saying?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
They think that we both just run good all the time, right? Like,
yeah, which is hard to argue, but yeah.
I think we play good all the time, man.
We're prepared.
That's
Didn't you
right.
just hear all the stuff that we do?
It
doesn't matter that we won 4 flips in a row.
Yeah, that's right. We visualize that stuff.
I've been manifesting that all morning.
Yeah,
so.
that's right.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, thanks for being on here. And,
thanks for having me.
Good luck out there.
Thank you.